Hi there. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to ask you an important question. Are you wondering why your hard work isn't reflecting in your bank account? If so, I've got something that could change the game for you. With my Digital Product Accelerator one-on-one coaching program, I'm on a mission to help entrepreneurs like you bank consistent revenue without sacrificing your time or sanity. Imagine shifting from 90% client-facing work to enjoying consistent revenue from your digital products, all while reclaiming your time. You already know that you don't need another course, and a one-size-fits-all approach isn't going to cut it. What you need is a strategic, long-term plan tailored just for you. So if you're ready to build the profitable, freedom-giving business you've dreamed of, apply to work with me by going to destinycop.com/apply. I cannot wait to learn more about you and your business. Welcome to the Course Creators MBA podcast. I'm your host, Destiny Cop. And in this podcast, we're covering actionable tips to grow your online course business. And thanks so much for joining me today. I have a special guest here with me. I have Dani Paige, and we're going to be talking about brag-worthy sales pages. And Dani is a conversion copywriter for online coaches and course creators. She has ki-boshed old school direct marketing and salesy tactics, and instead writes conversational, personality-packed copy to welcome in community and cash flow for all of her clients. And Dani has been part of many successful launches and has sold tens of thousands of digital products. Her most requested services are long-form sales pages, and she is here with all of us today to dish on her sales page tips. Dani, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so happy to have you. And before we get started, I have tons of questions for you today. Can you tell us a little bit about how you became a copywriter and your story and how you got to where you are today?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I am pumped to be here.
I'm excited to have you, and I love talking about sales pages, so this is going to be fun.
Me too. So a little bit about myself. I was born in Calgary, Canada. I graduated university in Chicago, and then was fortunate enough to go play semi-pro women's hockey over in Europe. So I lived in Vienna, Austria a while, and I just absolutely adore Europe. And after that, I came home and was working in the corporate industry and oil industry actually a little bit. And I mean, mostly because that's just what everyone else did in my hometown. But that just wasn't for me. You know, I felt put in a box. I wasn't making any impact, wasn't doing what I enjoyed at all. And I ended up stumbling into the digital marketing world. And I had always been obsessed with writing and felt like my world just flew wide open when I learned about copywriting. So I immersed myself in conversion copy. I picked up my first client. It was incredibly small, but I figured if one person needed me, there's got to be more out there. So I quit my corporate job, lost all of my wonderful perks and benefits, and just decided to take the leap and run with it. And I don't know if I would recommend that bold of a leap, but you know, it worked for me. And I'm now in a cute little lake town. And some of the best business advice I ever got was from a friend's dad. And he always said, make sure you love Mondays. And I'm just totally humbled that Mondays now really are my favorite day of the week.
I love that. Make sure you love Mondays, just to, you know, and that is such an important piece of advice, because if you don't love what you're doing, why are you doing it? Why not find something else, right?
Well, that's just it. And like, especially in corporate, everyone, you know, you make good money, you get all these benefits. And here I am taking this full other path, different path in life. And everyone's like, what are you doing? But, you know, you got to love those Mondays. So that was what drove me.
I have to go back to something that you just said, because when you told me, I didn't know this about you. And I'm like, she was a semi-pro women's hockey player. You have to tell me more about that. And what did you learn from playing hockey?
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, hockey was just, I mean, I guess I'm from Canada, very stereotypical, but grew up with brothers, and that's just the route that I took. And, so much of business and life for that matter, like I'll kind of go into what I took away from living in Vienna and playing hockey over there. Business and life, it's all about communicating, really. It's about understanding different people, listening to them, and how you can help them. And communicating in Vienna was very hard. My coach would, he'd be giving these pregame speeches, motivational speeches, but always in German, right? He'd be helping us on the bench during a game, everything in German. But at the end of the day, we were all motivated by one thing, and that was to win. And it was really a good lesson just to see how different all of us can be as individuals and still be able to relate to and understand each other.
Can you speak German?
I cannot speak German. I learned a few words when I was over there, and I've pretty much lost everything.
So he was giving these speeches in German, but that is very interesting to me. So could you understand them then, or is it just you're not fluent in it? Or tell me how, was it just his mannerisms that motivated you?
Well, I mean, especially German, you could understand when it was a motivational speak and when it was an angry speech, right? So
That's funny.
yeah, so I had some friends close by that, like, what the heck is he saying, sort of thing. But other than that, it was difficult. And even during practices, like I'm always one to be at the beginning of the line, but that was never the case. I had to always be at the back of the line, really trying to understand what the heck is going on, because I couldn't understand anything.
How long did you do this for?
I did it for a couple of years.
Wow, I'm impressed.
Yeah, I mean, it was wonderful. It was the best time of my life.
Well, let's get down to the core of what we want to talk about today. And we have a lot of course creators who listen to this podcast, and that maybe they're at the beginning of creating their course, or maybe they're done creating it and they're at the point where they're ready to launch it into the marketplace. Tell me, and based on your experience and the launches that you have helped people with, what is a sales page for course creators? Is that important? Is it a must-have, or can they get away with not having one? Can you tell us a little bit about your thoughts on that?
Yeah, totally. And like, I feel like copywriting has sometimes become a bit of an afterthought or an ugly duckling, I guess, in course creation, but it really should be one of the top priorities, because copywriting is all about communication, right? And this is vital in getting people to understand who you are and how you can help them moving forward. So if you can't communicate your benefit to them, nobody is going to buy from you. So there's a stat that I love to hear it's so true. It's that copywriting is 5% of your activity that will account for 95% of your results. And that's because you need two core things to be successful with your course. And one is a great offer, and two is great communication. And lots of people do have that great offer, but they may not be selling out their course or their copy, they're not selling out their course because their copy and their sales page just isn't communicating that value or the offer. So yeah, it's incredibly important, and I will dig into this a little bit more. I'm going to be sharing some mistakes here. So definitely want to dig into this a little bit more too.
So I want to go back to the quote that you had, and because I think it's so critical. One of the big quotes that I have is that an online course business is only 10% product creation but 90% marketing. But you're taking a little bit different twist on this. You're saying, and I want to make sure I got it right, I tried to write it down while you were talking. You said that copywriting is 5% of the activity that you're doing, but accounts for 95% of your results.
Yeah, and it's huge, because I mean, and I wish I knew who originally said this, but copywriting is, I mean, every aspect of your course has a part of has copy in it somewhere, right? Even if it's a little blurb at the bottom of your training, every portion has copy. So you need to put the effort in there because that's accounting for most of your results, why people are going to buy, you know.
I love that. And I'm going to write that down and include it, include it in our show notes here, because that is really the core, I think, of what we need to remember as we go through this. And as we're creating our sales pages, or we're creating our retargeting emails, or, anything that we're doing to, to convert our prospects into buyers. So
exactly. And I will say one
no,
more
go
thing.
ahead.
Yeah, because I know that something that really might help people too is to actually do the sales page first prior to building out the course or offer. And this may seem crazy to some people, but even it may help more during a beta, or when you're not 100% sure with what your offer is yet. But doing this sometimes helps with the big picture, because now you have a container of all the parts. You can map out your bonuses and your upsells, because you can see exactly what you're creating and who you're speaking to. And it kind of becomes the ultimate step-by-step outline that you can use to work backwards from. So it's a good little tip that it might work for some people to actually kind of work the other way with your sales page.
I like that tip. That's great. So you mentioned a second or so that you see course creators making mistakes in their sales pages. Can you tell us about, 3 or 4 of the biggest mistakes that you see people making?
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I have a few. I'll start with I guess a preliminary mistake first, and that is just simply not having a sales page altogether. So people might be thinking, well, my course is only $47. I'll just stick it on my site, sort of thing, you know. But if you're selling a course, you need a sales page, and it shouldn't be with all the other services on your website. It needs its own specific page, because it takes time to crush objections and to paint a desirable picture. And that sort of thing just can't happen on a little corner within your website.
Okay. I'm 100% behind that. I think a sales page is absolutely critical. So that absolutely, all the course creators, they need a dedicated sales page for their course. What's another mistake?
Totally. Yeah. So let's jump into these. So a big mistake I see is selling too much of your process and not enough of the result. So simply put, people aren't interested in buying your actual product or online course. What they're interested in purchasing is, that change, that benefit, or that transformation that you can give them, which means you ultimately always want to sell the result, not the process. So it's a bit of a take on, explaining the benefits, not the features that we often hear.
Mm-hmm.
And I can give you some examples here. So, say you're selling tires for a car. Nobody actually wants to buy tires. What they want, though, is for their family to be safe when they're driving in the wintertime. So this is the kind of mindset you want to have when you're writing your sales page. And I can give another example here too. Your readers might relate a little bit more to is selling a weight loss course. So I'll give a couple scenarios. So the mistake would be always selling the process, and that would be a sales page that talks about how you're going to teach people to eat carbs without gaining weight, or you're going to show them the best workouts, and they'll be learning how to avoid binge eating and stuff like that. But that's all selling the process, which isn't what makes people convert. Whereas the next scenario is of selling the result, is which we want to do, would be using your sales page to talk about how being down 3 dress sizes makes you feel when you're on the beach, or how food freedom will create joy and flexibility in your life, and how much pleasure and happiness you'll have when you can control your cravings and stuff like that. So you want to make sure that you're communicating the value and the result instead of just explaining the process or the what.
So should you do both? I mean, should you tell them about what they will get in the course? Okay.
Yeah, we do want to sell we do want to explain the process, but that's more after you've already communicated the value and the results and really got them in. So they're like, yes, I know this is what I want. How am I going to do it? And that's when you can explain your process. Whereas just explaining the process right away, and then people are like, okay, so what's in it for me, sort of thing.
Very good. Any more mistakes that we need to avoid?
Yeah, totally. Another mistake is just not putting the price on the sales page. And if the price isn't there, people will just assume that it's too expensive. So it makes people hesitant because they just think they're not likely, or they think they need to get on a sales call probably if there's no price there. And they don't necessarily want to hear the spiel. They just want to know the price. So if the price is there, it will curate people for you. And the thing is that they may not buy from you immediately, but if you've communicated your value well enough and they understand that they need your course to help them get where they need to be, they'll often go away, let it sink in, and try to figure out how they can make it work, and then come back to you and purchase. Whereas if you don't state the price on your sales page, it doesn't give them that chance to think about how they can make it work because they've often already written it off.
So that's a good point. So I think, the majority of the sales pages that I've looked at in the past generally have the price, but let's just say that you have a higher end offer, going back to your point before about having that phone conversation. Is there at any point that you think a phone conversation or some type of Zoom meeting would be necessary in addition to the sales page because maybe the price point is too high? What are your thoughts on that? Not too high, but higher.
Yeah, for sure. And there's no hard and fast rule for this. If your course is over 10K, I do understand that you probably want to get on the phone with them. And sometimes they still need to book with you. And even if you want to give that price before, this will still flush out better leads. So nobody is, shell shocked when they hear the price. So you don't want this call to be a waste of time for both of you. So kind of giving a little preamp does help, but I do understand that you definitely still sometimes need to get on the call too.
Very good. So can you tell me any other copy tips that you have that our online course creators could implement today?
Totally, yeah. So one tip that I like to give is like a more in the pre-launch, not just the sales page. But when you go to promote a course, beforehand, you can often do a webinar. And I see a lot of opportunity in that confirmation email, because sometimes when you sign up for that webinar, you get that automatic email that goes out. And this is the number one most read email on a webinar campaign because it's when your prospect is most excited to hear from you. So when I get a confirmation email after signing up for a webinar, I see a lot of missed opportunities with that standard, "You're in, see you next Thursday" email, Instead, it's a great chance to get your prospect committed right away to attending. You can explain to them who that person is that they're becoming by signing up for that webinar. You can inform them how proud their future self will be when they show up, tell them about specific details they'll be getting out of the call. You don't need to wait till later, like your later string of emails to do that, because they're in the now, they're excited about that webinar coming up.
I love that tip. So they sign up for your webinar. It's that first confirmation email that comes from you, not from your webinar system, but comes from you. And it needs to be more than "You're in, thanks for signing up." You go into details about yourself, what they can expect, who they are by signing up, like you said. That is a great tip.
Exactly. And like if you can too, if your software allows you to send that Zoom link out in that confirmation email, all the power to you, because then people can put it into their calendar right away, and they're more likely to come to show up when it's already in their calendar, rather than searching for more emails and getting more emails from you and finding that link. If it's in their calendar right away, boom, they have a much better chance of going.
Very good. Dani, thank you so much for joining me today. Can you tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me at danipaige.com. That's DANIPAIGE.com. Sign up for me, my emails. I would absolutely love to chat a little bit more.
And thank you so much. And I will include that link in our show notes so everybody has it. I hope you enjoyed this episode today. Would love it if you could rate and review our podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcast platform. Have a great rest of your day. Bye for now.